Hello, friend. Welcome to Speech Goods, a podcast where we showcase awesome SLPs doing awesome traditional and non-traditional SLP things. Myself and the guests on the show are here to talk about the goods, the bads, and the untangible parts of ourselves and our SLP careers, and how, despite everyday life, have just done the dang thing, loving what we do. I'm your host, Danny Augustine. A few years ago, I went from burnt out, dissatisfied with my SLP job to dusting off my big girl pants and sprinkling some determination in my 20-cent coffee and starting my own debt-free private practice. Now, I love my working career and wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. It was the support and wisdom from others around me that helped me refine my why. In this show, I hope that you're going to find support and wisdom of your own. Hello, and welcome back to the Speech Goods podcast. Today we have our second OT guest on the Speech Goods podcast. I love it. Getting the different professions, getting SLPs, it just gives me all the feels and makes me so excited. Okay, so today we have Dr. Amirra Condelee OTD OTRL. I don't know whose credentials are harder to say, OTs or speech language pathologist. You vote, you tell me. So Amirra is an Arizona-based healthcare blogger, content creator, and pediatric occupational therapist dedicated to helping fellow OTs grow in OT, faith, and finance. Amirra is passionate about two areas: financial empowerment for healthcare professionals and helping little miracles fulfill big dreams. Amirra has been practicing as an OT in the early intervention setting since graduating from MGH Institute of Health Professions in May of 2019. She is the proud owner of Marvelous Mirracles Pediatric Therapy, LLC, providing pediatric home health services and the face behind the Marvelous Miracles brand, created with one goal in mind: to help healthcare professionals grow, elevate, and exceed even their own expectations of themselves. Amirra likes to say she's an occupational therapist turned personal finance enthusiast, but she's definitely both and is dedicated to teaching others about personal finance and building wealth. She believes in having a real, open, honest, and transparent conversation about money and finance that many never have in graduate school. Okay, I'm going to pause on her bio right now. Are you starting to see why I wanted to have her on the show? Are you picking that up? Okay, let's get back into her bio. So Amirra is an executive board member of the Arizona OT Association. She's helped establish the Justice, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Ad Hoc Committee. And as an OT with a diverse background, she really recognizes the importance of advocacy and the role of occupational therapy in addressing issues, barriers, and racial health disparities that are affecting minority communities and participation in meaningful occupations. In her free time, Amirra enjoys cooking, reading, international and domestic travel, hiking with her dogs and husband, and spending time with family. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what you're going to get to hear in this episode. It is packed with so much value you're going to love. So Amirra is like the sweeter, not as loud and obnoxious, kinder version of myself as an OT. I feel like that's kind of the vibe that you guys are going to get. If you are watching this on video, you're just going to see lots of me putting up my hands in the air, nodding my head, yes, girl, yes, queen. I agree with everything that is being stated at this moment. It was just the conversation was freaking on fire. We get into a real talk, no fluff, save it for the marshmallows conversation about student loans. We even actually start talking about some differences in our own student loan situations, and we actually are taking different approaches to paying off our student loan debt and how that is perfectly okay. We even talk about this idea of being six figures in student loan debt isn't quite the same thing as having just, maybe 20 or 30,000, and how it really is up to the individual how you want to deal with those things. She talks about how she felt that shame and guilt, and how she really had to just learn to forgive herself for taking out those loans, and learning kind of, hey, when you know better, you do better, and just forgiving yourself and that it's okay. And I think that's what a lot of us can really glean from this conversation, is just that vulnerability that she's having. And I really appreciate everyone who comes on this podcast and is just willing to be vulnerable about those types of topics. Then we also get into this conversation. It was very much like a empower each other, like sister girl conversation about why healthcare professionals not only need to build wealth, but should not feel guilty about building wealth, and how ultimately when we are the ones with the money in our pockets, that our patients are the ones that benefit. And I think that is a conversation that a lot of us really, really need to hear. We talk a little bit about how money is a tool. We talk about how we love to neglect our own needs as therapists, because that's just kind of the personality types that tend to go into these fields of speech pathology and occupational therapy. She gives information about how she started her OT side hustle, and she has her online business of Marvelous Miracles, as well as being a full-time clinician. So anyways, I'm going to stop with my redonkulous hand gestures and let you get to the episode, but you're going to love, love, love Amirra. All right, let's go do this. Hello, 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 Amirra. How are you doing today?
I am feeling wonderful. I am so pumped to have this conversation with you today, Danny.
Yes, yes. And everybody just heard your fabulous bio. You're doing all these awesome things. You just came off of like this conference thing for side hustles for OTs, our beautiful brothers and sisters in healthcare. We love PTs too, also as well. But so excited to have you. We're going to talking about money, student loans. You have your own unique student loan journey. And our student loan journeys are actually very, very different, which I think is going to be really, really cool to talk about and for everybody to be able to hear your story. So can you just tell us a little bit about what has made you and your OT journey unique?
I think what has made it so unique is that the place that I am today and where I am today and the things that I'm doing, I never in a million years saw myself doing it. And I say that in all the best ways possible. So growing up, I had this fascination with like human body. I loved kids. I loved medicine. I loved the brain. So I always thought I would do something to merge those together. And naturally, I thought I was going to become a pediatrician. And then from there, I went to this like super nerdy medical camp when I was in high school. And I got to shadow with a neonatologist. And so I was like, this is the path for me. Like I'm going to be a neonatologist, work with the babies. And that is really what I aspire to do. And you could not have told me otherwise that that's not what I would end up doing. And then I started undergrad and I took chemistry and they said it was a weed out course and they were correct because I was like, this sucks. This is not what I want to do with my life. And so I started to really rethink it and I stumbled across OT and I never looked back, but it's just so wild to me because I never saw myself in a profession like this. And there's just so many things that you can do as an OT. And I'm sure we'll talk, more about how I've made that journey as an OT unique to me and some other things that I'm pursuing outside of the traditional kind of scope of occupational therapy. But it's been a journey, it's been a ride, and I've enjoyed it.
Yes, yes. And you have, so how many years have you been in OT? Did we
2
say
years.
that?
I
2 years?
graduated in 2019.
Okay, awesome. So you're still like kind of earlier on in your OT career and you're still doing all these awesome things, right? So you have your blog and your Instagram page, Marvelous Miracles, but it's miracles with two R's, like
Two
for
R's.
Amirra.
Yes.
Okay, I legit did not figure that out until like a month ago. I was like, clever girl, clever
That is
girl.
so funny. Did you think it
not-
was just like misspelled the whole time?
Honestly, and the funny thing is, one of my specialties is Orton Gillicam for children with dyslexia. I'm like really bad with spelling, and so I did not even notice it at all.
That's hilarious.
Yes, yes, but I actually love your blog. I read it. And you have a very good, awesome Instagram like community that you created there. And we're kind of, so if you guys listeners, if you guys don't follow her, first of all, go follow her. She's awesome. Her handle is in the show notes. Second of all, we were talking about this before we hit record. I really kind of feel like you're like my sister. You're like my OT sister. Like you're like the personal finance OT person, and I'm like the personal finance SLP person.
Yes. Now we just need a PT to join our little group.
Yes. Any PTs out there? Actually, wait, I think I know one. Oh my gosh, so there's a PT that's coming on that I'm going to interview in like a
Ooh.
month.
Mhm.
Maybe I can get her on this train. We're going to make it happen.
I love it.
But you have your own financial journey as well. And I think, and kind of like I mentioned earlier, we both have like our little student loan journeys, and that's something that we talk about a lot on our pages. So could you talk to us a little bit about your financial journey, how you came to get where you are, and also, now you're even teaching it, which is super awesome.
Yes. So Where do I start with this? Let's kind of rewind all the way back to enrolling in OT school because that was the biggest bill of my life that I never even knew I would need to pay back plus some. So I enrolled in an entry level OTD, which is a doctorate program. It was 3 years. And you talk about this, Danny, all the time. It was a big, fancy private school with a huge ticket amount. And honestly, that's not why I went there. I loved Boston and, I loved the school. I loved that it was small. I loved the faculty. I loved what they stood for. And so I really felt at home at that school. I got into a couple other OT programs. And looking back, those were actually a lot cheaper. But I chose, of course, the most expensive option. But I mean, you're just so excited to finally be doing something that you really feel called to do. And you're almost like I saw that number, I saw that price tag, but it didn't feel real. And so my school was about $115,000 for 3 years. And I ended up borrowing that times two because I had to live off of the student loans for like our clinical rotations and things like that. So all throughout OT school, I made some decisions that were not very intentional. So, and it ended up with me just racking up a crap ton of student loan debt that I didn't want to face it. I knew that it was a lot, but I felt like, you know what, I'm finally an OT. I'm finally living my dream. I'm doing what I felt called to do. And I was like, I will probably just die with student loan debt. And it is what it is. I'll just pay that minimum, whatever it is. And one day maybe it'll be gone. One day maybe it'll be forgiven. But I just really wasn't the type of person who was like, I'm going to aggressively pay this off as soon as I graduate because I didn't really know any better. I didn't have those conversations when I was younger. I didn't have those conversations in my schooling. And so when I graduated after I had, went out of, I went out of town for all three of my rotations. I went to Houston for two of them, and then I went to Seattle. And so I wasn't working at this time. I did work while I was in the program, but I wasn't working for, I don't know, what is that, like maybe 9 or 10 months I wasn't working and I was just living exclusively off those student loans and I was borrowing more and more and more. And I just wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention to even thinking about the undergrad loans that I still had because I came straight from undergrad into my grad program. And so that was back over in the corner, accruing even more interest. And I didn't know about that. And so you graduate and you're just so excited. And so I was very much of the mindset that out of sight, out of mind. I don't want to deal with it. I know it's over 6 figures because I knew I had borrowed the entire amount plus some, and I just didn't want to face it. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to, that just not wanting to face it because it feels overwhelming. When I first looked at it, I sobbed. I was like, what have I done? Like, how am I going to get out of this? And money is just, it's very emotional. And so I beat myself up about it. I was like, what did I do? Like, how's my life going to look with this? And it's just overwhelming. It's just shocking. And I think like you're talking about, when you have a little bit of loans versus well into the 6 figures, it's like, how am I ever going to climb out of that? And so I kind of really have made that my mission in showing people that it is possible. It is not easy. It will be difficult. You will have to make sacrifices, but you can still live your life. You can still enjoy your life, even if you do have that significant weight, but knowing that it is possible to get out of it. And that's just really my mission now with what I do over my Marvelous Miracles brand.
I love that you just like approach it with a lot of grace and understanding with this idea. Because that, like, the fact that you cried when you saw, like, honestly, like, it kind of makes me like tear up a little bit. Like the fact that you cried when you saw that, like, I couldn't, and that's what, and listeners, y'all already know this because I talk about it all the time, but me and whoever I'm talking to, we talk before we hit the record button. So we talked about this before we hit the record button, just about how, there's a lot of hype in the debt freedom, the debt free community. And there's a lot of pressure, and it could, and some of it is almost a shaming, and I think it's really important to highlight the difference between everyone's journeys, and also important to highlight the idea of just being intentional, and understanding that everyone's journey is different. So I had $52,000 in, for those of you who don't know, those of you who do not know my story, I had $52,000 in student debt, which is a very different beast than when you've got 6 figures. It breaks my heart when I hear SLPs, OTs, and PTs like tell me they have 6 figures. Cause like, I can't, just like you said, like, it's a weight, and it's not something that I would, to guilt someone over, because just like you said, like, Amirra, I hear your story all the time of just like, it wasn't like, oh, let me go get a Gucci bag. Like, it was just, it
I
was just
wish I got a Gucci bag out of this.
right. Like, it was just like, you just didn't think about it. Like, it wasn't like, I'm going to go be stupid. It was just like, I just wanted to be an OT. Like, I just wanted to be OT, and I just wanted to help people. Like, I just wanted to play with the kids. Like, this is all I wanted to do. And I think that's super, super important, that wherever you are in your journey, and I want you to talk about that, because I know that was probably something you had to go through, really learning to forgive yourself a little bit. Because I had to do that too, even with my student loans. Like, I had to forgive myself because I could have gone to a cheap school. I could have gone to a cheap school. I forewent that because I bought into the fancy narrative. But that part of just kind of forgiving yourself and giving yourself grace so that you can take that next step forward. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did that work for you getting through that?
Gosh, this is such an emotional like conversation.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I definitely beat myself up a lot. But you know what actually helped me was to actually sit down and look at that number and break it down and say, oh, I didn't borrow. I didn't actually take out this much money. So what happened? And I started learning I knew about interest. You see that 7%, but like, I didn't know what that meant when I saw it. I was like, I don't know, 7% of interest. Okay. But to actually sit down and see, well, how much of this balance is interest? And then you have to think about your interest capitalizes. So they put more interest on top of it. And I think, gosh, I mean, so many people talk about just the student loan just system and how it's set up it keeps you either stagnant or, I mean, it keeps you behind, because I thought, I was like, okay, well, I can pay this. And then I realized, oh, that's only going to cover interest. That doesn't cover the whole thing. I'm going to have to make twice, 3 times that to actually get out of the debt. And so for me, it was very eye-opening for me to be like, okay, I didn't just borrow a ton of money and spend it on whatever. It was this thing about the interest that I didn't understand. And then the loans from undergrad were still accruing for the 3 years I was in OT school. So it's just so much of student loans. And this is why I wish that we had more of like that financial literacy conversations before we start taking out these loans, right? I mean, you are like 18 years old and they're giving you tens of thousands of dollars, and then you get these big refund checks, and it's just so much that goes into it. And so because I didn't have that knowledge, I didn't understand what I was doing and how that amount was going to balloon over time. But that helped me to feel a little bit better, because I was like, I just didn't know. It's not like I was being dumb or making these terrible decisions. Like, I mean, I lived pretty frugally in graduate school. I wasn't taking fancy trips every 5 seconds. Like, my car was really cheap and my dad helped me get. And so it was just like, I really didn't make terrible decisions, but I just didn't have that financial literacy and knowledge and background before I took out those loans and before I took out like the grad plus loans and things like that. So that, I think that's what helped me to just forgive myself, was looking at it and breaking it down and realizing it's how the system is set up, and the system sucks.
Yes. Because, well, so apparently when you take out the loans, which I don't remember this, that's a perfect example of how well it works. Apparently they do give you some like videos or something before you click like apply for loans and stuff. But I mean, honestly, I think it's either your parents or you have some sort of adult in your life that really educates you on this, or by some stroke of luck, you follow an account like Amirra's or mine, and you start actually thinking about this stuff. Because I think we get so, especially like in that undergrad and grad, and I'm sure OTs are very similar to SLPs in that sense, where like we just get tunnel vision. Like, I want to be an SLP, I want to be an OT. What do I have to do? Okay, I got to go take the class. I gotta get the extracurriculars. Oh, I have a 3.7. That won't do. I need to bump that up to a 3.8 or a 3.9. And with and we have, these are beautiful professions, right? But they're glamorized, and like, one of my undergrad professors, she said, you're gonna save the world in your cardigans and pearls to all of the CSD.
I love that so much.
Yes. She actually wasn't a speech therapist. She was a linguist from Britain. So I think she was like actually making fun of us, but whatever. But I mean, that's all you were thinking about. And that's all, and I don't know about you, but like, I didn't, I had a job in undergrad. Like, I had a small job, I paid for like my spending money, but like, I didn't understand the concept of $52,000 or like paying back $52,000 on a $50,000 salary. Like I did not like, I didn't know what did that look like even living on 50 grand in Louisiana or in Texas, you know?
Or taxes. I mean, taxes come out, like things come out of your paycheck and you don't know because you haven't started making that money. So, my first few checks, I saw the number and I was like, this is a little bit smaller than I was thinking I was bringing in because you have all these deductions. And so I just think like you don't know what you don't know. And I mean, after you graduate and you're in it, it's too late. And so you can't really focus on, well, I should have done this or I should have done that. And I let myself sit in those feelings for the first, couple, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months or so. I let myself sit in it. And I was like, this sucks. The situation really sucks. I'm going to have to dig myself out of it. And something snapped inside of me. And I was like, I don't want to be paying this for the next 10, 20 years. I don't want to have to do that. I want to get rid of it. Like I deserve more. I have worked so hard to have this weight on my shoulders, even if like, it's just a weight. I mean, I can't describe it. It's just a massive weight that you always feel and you feel guilty. Like if I go out and spend money on a new pair of shoes, you're like, I shouldn't have done that because I have student loan debt. And so it's just, I didn't want that weight for myself for, 10, 20 years. And I think that's what got me really serious about, I just need to learn like personal finance concepts. I need to figure out how to budget. I mean, I know this is huge for you, but I didn't really know how to create a budget or how to track my income. How do I track my expenses? And I realized, that was the foundation for it all. And so I had to really sit and figure out, well, how the heck do I like figure out a plan for my money? And so just some of those really simple personal finance concepts that have helped me along in my financial journey. But I have to say, I mean, I just wish that there were more healthcare professionals talking about it. And that's a big reason why I started talking about it, because I was like, if I had me 5 years ago, I wouldn't be in this situation today. And that's really my huge, goal is for people to see people like me and you, clinicians, and, know the salaries that we make and the student loan debt that we've been able to get out of or that we're getting out of, and know how to do it, because not enough people, I think, were talking about it, or at least I didn't see them. I didn't see anyone talking about it, because I think that would have really, really helped me when I was, pursuing this career and figuring out just the best decisions for me to set me up for success, long term.
Yes. Yeah. And you're 100% right. People, I do hear in the healthcare space, I do hear doctors talking about the financial side a lot. They even get classes on private practice. Like my best friend is an optometrist, and they had a
Okay.
whole course on private practice, finances, business, like,
Oh, nice.
because that's something that me and Jenna Casher-Casbaum from Independent Clinician, something that we talk about all the time, is like lots of other professions. It's just assume that you're going to go into business and you're going to have, and they talk about money, maybe not necessarily personal finance, but they talk about money, and they talk about the amount of student loan debt that you've had to accrue to get this degree. But I don't, the allied health professionals, I don't hear it either. I really don't hear it either. So Amirra, I want to ask you, why do you think, obviously everybody knows, I think it too, but why do you think it is so important for us as OTs, PTs, SLPs to be financially literate and to have these discussions?
Because we deserve to love our lives, and we deserve to create lives that we genuinely love. And I know that money is a tool to do that. And, we pour and we give and we do so much for so many others, our patients and our clients and our families and our kids that we work with. And I think a lot of times our own needs are neglected and we don't think about it. And then we think that we have to work until 65 and we have to be burnt out. And I mean, across the board, there's so many professionals who feel like they are underpaid, they're undervalued, they're not respected, they're overworked. I mean, the list just goes on. And I think we have such beautiful hearts at our core. I mean, just, we just show up to serve others and we show up to pour into others. And I just want us to really love our lives and to have, the freedom and the flexibility to do what we want to do when we want to do it. And I think that money can help us get there and financial freedom can help us get there. But we just have to acknowledge that and not feel like we're being greedy or we just want more money just because it's not about the money. It's never about the money. And I always say this, it's about using money as a tool. You can show it better for your clients and you can show it better for yourself and your families and spouses. And so I want us to just grasp that and take a hold of that. And like you said, there's so many other professionals and professions that talk about money, tech, entertainment, like we praise it and we talk about when people close big business deals. And so why can't we talk about a clinician who retired at 40 as a millionaire? We should be having those conversations, and we should be, we need to have those people to look up to and just know that it is possible for us as well.
So if you're doing audio, if you're not seeing the video, I've been like waving my hands in the air like I just don't care as she keeps talking. Like all of the things that you just said, yes, like all of that, because there's an expectation that doctors are going to make a lot of money, that, even nurse practitioners, physicians assistants, they make a lot of money. Like there is an expectation. I know people have gone into those fields just for the money, but for whatever reason, for us, it's always, oh, I didn't go into this for the money. I do it for the kids. I do it for this, which you should be doing that. Like, that's good. Like, I don't want you to just be like, give me all of the cash, screw everything else. That's not what I'm saying, but you're 100% right. Like, I think for whatever reason, there's this narrative that a lot of us have bought into, that it, like, anyone in our fields who are interested in money is greedy. And like, that's not the case for other industries. And that's also not the case for other healthcare professionals. And, like my brother is a doctor. He's a forensic psychiatrist. He's not even going to walk in your building for less than $500. Like, and he's like, and when I've had this discussion with him, and he's like, I've paid a lot of money for my education. I took a lot of time to get my education. I know the value that I bring. I know what I'm worth. And it's just so, and that was really preached to him throughout all of his training, throughout medical school, throughout his residency. He also did a fellowship to become a forensic psychiatrist. And that was really ingrained in him in his training. And I feel like the opposite was ingrained in us in our training. What do you think about that?
I mean, I just think the focus wasn't there at all. And it's so interesting. And I kind of have a similar story. So my husband is also in healthcare. He's a nurse anesthetist. And for those of you who don't know, they administer anesthesia in the operating room. And so in their programs, they are so open. They are so open. I mean, the professors are sharing how much they make. I mean, they're out on their rotations, and this fellow CRNAs are talking about how much they have made as a new grad. They have this whole like database where they can organize jobs by pay. It's just so, I know. And I was like, man, we need to get together and create something like that, because the whole pay transparency during the job search is like a whole other soapbox I can get on. But I think it just needs to be more upfront. And anyway, so I like that in the CRNA profession, they even have that database, and it's not taboo to talk about, because they're like, hey, they paid a lot of money too to go to school, and they know what they're worth. And it's not this like weird conversation or super taboo. It's that transparency that I think that we lack in our professions. And I'm not quite sure why, because I don't think it's anything, that we don't need to be talking about. It's just so strange. But I mean, so many other professions are so much more open, and I just want us to be more open about it.
Yes. And they have a database. Are you serious?
Yes.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow.
Of the whole country, and the hospitals and jobs post their listings. And, if there's a certain salary you want, you can click it, and it's just right there.
That is
before
crazy.
you ever do like the interview or anything, it's right there.
Wow. That is,
and it tells you what to expect as like a new grad. I know. I was like, we need one of these. I love this.
Yeah. Cough, cough, Asha. Where you at?
That's AOTA. Hello.
Yeah. Like cough, cough. And our dues, we pay like it's like $225 a year or something like that to be able to have your C's, because it's very difficult to get a job if you don't have your CCCs. Y'all aren't like that, right?
No.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic, but
yeah. I've seen SLP Instagram this week, and I was like,
everyone always gets real salty because our dues are always due around Christmas time. Like, it's due December 31st. So like everyone's always like real salty about it.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh yeah. I always pay mine early because like it's so depressing.
Get it out of the way. Yeah.
Just be done with it. Put it in the budget. So I 100% agree with you that we deserve better. And I think that like our field is this weird in between of we don't make the doctor salaries.
Right.
We just don't. Okay. But we care so much and we give so much and everything is so individualized. And I think you're 100% right. Like if we try to take care of ourselves, because I think financial literacy is a form of self-care. Like,
Absolutely.
bubble
Yes.
baths are great. I love bubble bath.
Yes.
Your girl loves a glass of Chardonnay and a bubble bath, and I put my iPad up and I'm watching Harry Potter movies. Like, I love that. But
Mhm.
financial literacy is one of the most ultimate forms of self-care. So you were nodding your head when I said that. So I'm gonna let you take that because I think you have words. I want to hear your words.
Yes, yes. So, and this is what has led me to over the past, I would say about 6 months now, to really figure out how to blend my work as an OT and the skills that I learned as an OT with personal finance. Because at first I was like, well, what business do I have as an OT trying to educate others about personal finance? First of all, I am still figuring things out myself. And, how is this really OT? But when I think about what it means to be as an OT at our core, we are here to improve quality of life. And hello, money can absolutely improve your quality of life. And furthermore, we talk about in our programs how to help our clients, with like cognitive deficits and things like that, work on money management skills. And so it's like, well, of course I can talk about this. Of course I can teach others how to build, healthy money habits and develop that mindset around money and wealth building and prosperity and abundance and all these things and all these different things. And so I really love that I have been able to use my skills and what I've learned as an OT about how to just work with people, how to collaborate, how to coach and mentor, and how to do that, but blend it now with this new passion that I have for personal finance and financial literacy. And I think, and we talked about this too, Danny, when you are in as much debt as I am in, well into the 6-figure zone, you have to get creative. You have to get really creative in how you are going to get rid of that because, and I will say like my salary as an OT, I live in Arizona. It is pretty good. It's pretty on the higher end. And that's a whole thing that I talk about just how I negotiated and how I figured out how I could work in very, very rural communities to get paid like 2 times more than I would if I was working out in my home base. And so there's really intentional ways that you can go about making more money as an OT. And so when I got serious about wanting to get out of that debt, I had to think about that. So I have a pretty high paying base position, but then I was like, I still need some more. Let's be real, because I have, these big dreams, these big goals. And so I started doing independent contracting on the side. And then I got into Instagram and then I learned that, I can actually, work with brands and they'll pay me and I can do things like that. And so it just forces you to get very, very creative. And that's why that OT Online Side Hustle and Beyond conference was so cool to just hear about all the different ways that you can have these side hustles and use our skills as clinicians and, blend our passions with our skills as clinicians to make money, but also serve a purpose and, walk in our calling and help others.
And I just want to highlight that I really, really love, we're going to get into that OT side hustle thing because I know everybody's going to want to hear about that. I want to hear about that. Let's be honest.
Cool.
But I just really want to highlight for everybody listening, like, I love your attitude and take on things. It's very much sort of like, you have a lot of debt. And that's like, that sucks. Like, there's no like, oh, it'll be okay. No, like, it sucks.
Okay? No, it's terrible.
Guys, like, no fluff, leave it for the marshmallows. It sucks. Like, and I'm not, like, I remember feeling a weight and like, I did not have as much as you have.
Just imagine 4 times that weight.
I'm like, ugh. Okay. So, and I know that there's people out there who are in a similar situation, but I just really want to highlight like that. I admire how, you look at the situation, you recognize that it sucks. We're not looking at this with rose colored glasses. Okay. It sucks. Mm-hmm. I got you. But you didn't stop there. You said you kind of marinated it for a little while because it's almost probably kind of like a mourning period, honestly, of just like recognizing like, this is the situation that I'm in and accepting that. Like, is that the last stage of grief is acceptance? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I
would hope. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds right. That sounds like it ties a bow on it.
I think so.
And you got to that point of just like accepting like, okay, this is a situation that I'm in, but then you went beyond that and said, what am I going to do about it? And I really, really just want to highlight that in your journey, like just as someone has been listening to you and someone who's talking to you, I really want everyone to just make sure that you like in on that, because that piece is so important. So that you take that next step. Like, okay, what are your action steps? Like, what are you, for you, it was like, okay, I need to get creative. I need to increase my income. For a lot of you listening out there, that's going to be, you can decrease your expenses all day, but there gets to a point very, very quickly where you just need to make more money. And we as SLPs, OTs, PTs, we have a lot of potential to increase our income and bring in income aside from just like a traditional role, which also, just like you said, like you can negotiate for a higher pay and higher salary with your traditional role. But there's also other ways that our skills can be applied that you don't have to go learn a whole new skill. So let's talk. I want to talk with you about that a little bit too. Like you just had that conference about OT side hustles. Can you tell us a little bit about like starting your business, OTs in business, and how, any things that you want to kind of share with the listeners?
Absolutely. Yes. So I started Marvelous Miracles Pediatric Therapy LLC in it was January of 2020, and it primarily just started out as solely independent contracting. So there was an agency out here. I independent contracted with them. It was a significantly higher rate than I was making with my early intervention position. Of course, no benefits, no taxes were taken out, all that good stuff. We do have a CPA, so I'm not going to talk about taxes because our CPAs handle the taxes because that's like a whole thing in itself. But I wanted to kind of just get my feet wet with that. And so I started picking up a couple clients for pediatric home health and doing sessions and evaluations. And I really enjoyed it. And so I still have that position. I can take as many or as little kids as I have, or as I need, or as I want. And so it's very, very part-time right now, but it still is kind of it generates another source of income aside from my early intervention position, but it's still using my same skills. I'm still working with kids. So that's, one I would say simple route to go. And like I said, I contract with another agency, so I don't have to, it's not like private practice where I have to seek out my own referrals or anything like that. But it is just another source of income. And in that position, I also supervise OT assistants, which is awesome because it's really cool to just collaborate and work together. And then it's also, I get paid for supervision, get paid for signing off on notes and things like that. So that was my first kind of side income. And then from there, I kind of built the Marvelous Miracles brand. So I joined the Instagram community and I decided I was going to start blogging because I like Instagram captions, but I get a little long-winded and I just want to write sometimes. So I had started looking into, and this is what I talked about during the conference, was on monetizing on Instagram and monetizing your blog. So when you have built, a really nice platform and, people are engaged and they're coming to you, you can really start to hone in on that and start to monetize in different ways. And so a couple of the ways that we talked about was like affiliate links. So, you refer and you post a link, somebody clicks it and buys it and you get a percentage. And so I started doing some of that. I did 2 conferences that people invited me to speak at. One was about toddler development and one was about baby development. And so I promoted it, I sold tickets, and then I got a small percentage of that. So that was kind of my first experience with affiliate links. And I really liked it because it was, of course, generating income, but I also got to meet awesome people and connect. And, it wasn't directly OT, like I was speaking alongside pediatricians and I mean, just anybody. And so it was really cool to just connect that way. But sorry, my dog is like snoring in the back. Can you hear her? Or is that just distracting for me?
You're all good. The only reason you'll hear my dog is because I'm not at home. She's always like shaking in the background.
She just like distracted me so much because it was such a loud snore. I was like, oh my God, they definitely are that.
You're all good. You're all good.
I am like a squirrel. I get distracted very easily. So we talked about affiliate links, of course, sponsorships and like brand collaborations. I've done a couple of those. I worked with like a financial app, which was really cool. I've worked with a toy company. I do guest blog writing for them. And so anytime, just a little tidbit, if anyone reaches out to you, you can always negotiate those. So like one of those, one of the collaborations I had, initially, they just wanted me to be an ambassador. And I was like, let's negotiate a little bit. And they ended up paying me for a one-time thing. So you can definitely negotiate that way. So there's just so many ways to monetize like your platforms. You can put ads on your website. So there's lots and lots of different ways. And then other things they talked about were like online courses. They talked about coaching and consultation. They talked about membership programs. What else? Digital products. I mean, there's just so many things that people are doing as an OT, or that you could do as a PT, SLP, but it might not be directly, the traditional role, traditionally working in like a hospital or a clinic. But there's so many different ways that you can make money online. And so, like I said, you got to get creative. You got to put yourself out there, but there's definitely, ways to do it.
Yes, I think, in school, and I assume OT is fairly similar. We're just it's like we're indoctrinated, like clinician, 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 therapy session, therapy session, therapy session. I can't believe I said that without messing that up. My speech articulation skills. Anyways, and I think it's so not ever talked about of how to use your SLP or OT skills, not just in the therapy room. And I think like all I ever thought about in grad school or my first couple years out of school was, oh, I can be a clinician or I can teach. I can go, that's what I thought. Like, if I get tired of kids, maybe I'll go do adults, or if I get tired of that, I'll go teachers university. But there's so much, like, y'all, we live in the age of the interwebs, the internet. Like, you can literally get on your computer and start a business, like out of thin air. Like it used to be, even 20 years ago, you'd have to like get a storefront. You'd have to go pay someone a bunch of money to make your logo. You can go make a logo on Canva with a free account. Yeah. Like, oh, like, it's just, it really is fascinating to me. And I think, and I don't know, I'm curious how you feel about this. I've had conversations with like a lot of Gen Zers. I actually used to do some work with a local summer camp with high schoolers. And I think Gen Z, as they kind of have this, they kind of understand this because they really grew up with like full-fledged internet. Like, we had internet, but like, I remember when I was 12, it still took me like 2 hours to download a song off of iTunes. Okay. But like, they recognize how much opportunity there is out there if you just kind of like get out of your little box of what you think you're supposed to do. And I think there's a very well-defined box in our fields, like a very, like, you do your therapy and you either get paid per hour, you get paid per session, or you can get paid salary. Like, that's all you really get to do. Like, or if you have an assistant, you can get paid, but like, that is in the box. And like, that's cool. You want me in the box? Be in the box, girl. Like, that's really cool. But there's so many opportunities outside of the box, like online, like literally everything you just listed. That's an opportunity, but you have to put yourself out there. And I want to get your opinion on this as an OT as well. I feel like there's, for, my colleagues in the SLP field, I feel like there's a lot of hesitancy, to putting themselves out there for things like going into the online space, or like kind of branching out from our more traditional role, or even branching out into starting their own private practice. What are your thoughts on that? Like, this hesitancy that a lot of like the personality types in our fields have.
I think it's that people don't know what's possible. And so that's why the conference was really amazing to just hear. And, they got into their numbers and how much they're bringing in extra a month. I mean, 500, 5,000, like, they are doing it. And so I think that, or as Danny says, doing the dang thing. They really are. And so I think that people just have to know that is possible for you. And it doesn't take a background in marketing or advertising or business. You don't have to take some fancy course to figure out how to work Canva. Like, it's just right there for you. And so I think if people have that knowledge that, it is possible and you can do it, once you get over that, you're like, okay, I got this. I mean, when I started out on Instagram, I honestly didn't know what I was doing. And people think that I, had this strategy, and I was like, I just talked in the thin air and hoped that somebody would come hang out with me. Like, I had a couple strategies, but I was no guru by any means, and I'm still not. But I think that you have to just accept that you're going to make mistakes. You have to learn as you go. I did my first big digital product a couple of months ago was a webinar, and I really enjoyed it. But there's a lot of stuff that I wish I would have done differently. And there's a lot of things that I will change when and if I get around to doing something else like that. But, now I have that webinar, right? And it's locked away in my vault, but at any point I can re-release it, I can relaunch it. And so, just figuring out these ways to generate that passive income and repurpose your content and make money from it while also serving and showing up for others. I think that's just such a great thing. And so if people can just know what is possible, I think that and realize that it's not as hard as you might think, even with technology. I mean, technology, it can be a beast. It can be a beast, but there's just so many ways that you can simplify things nowadays that it's possible. And I think that's what clinicians just need to understand.
So, question. Well, it's a two-part. A, do you feel like you struggle with perfectionism? B, do you feel like, because this is like pervasive in the SLP field. Okay, let me just be honest. So 1, do you feel like you struggle with perfectionism? 2, do you feel like, is that a thing with OTs? Because it is like a ginormous thing amongst SLPs.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I don't know
anyone I'm not alone.
Does it. Yes, I so many OTs I know would probably agree that we all struggle with. We just want things to be right. I think that's what it is. Even when you're posting, you want things to be right, and I've had to just get over that. If something is misaligned, if I mess up my grid, I mean, nobody cares. No one critiques your stuff as much as you do. And I think once I got out of my own head and realized, Amirra, nobody is looking at every tiny little thing on the products that you're making. Like, you're fine. Once you get out of your own head and realize that you're just being way harder on yourself than anyone would ever be on you, then you're fine. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. How did you get past that part of just like, because I feel like literally everyone that's in the online space, like creating any kind of products that I've brought on here, has said the exact same thing. Like, I just had to learn to get over it. Is there like a particular story you can think of, or like a particular moment that comes to mind where you had to finally just be like, just stop?
I'm trying to think. I feel like I've had so many of those moments. You know what it is? Reels. Instagram Reels. I will say I am not a fan of Reels. I try. I'm actually going to post one today that I recorded like 2 months ago. I really don't like Reels, but I've seriously had it for over 2 months. And I haven't put it out because I don't like how I'm moving in it. And it's just like, I guarantee when I post it today, you're going to be like, what? It's like one movement. First of all you did was turn your body. But I think Reels is really what forced me to get over my perfectionism, because your Reel will just sit in your drafts for weeks and then you post it and people love it. And it's like, oh, I could have really just posted that a long time ago. So I don't know. I think that's like my content creator moment, when it forced me to get out of my own head and realize I just got to put it out there and see what happens. And if it flops, it flops. If it does well, it does well, whatever. I mean, I like it and my mom likes it. That's all that matters.
Love it. My mom likes it. So I love that. I love you, Amirra. That's so funny. And I love how you said that. Yeah. Cause like it very well may flop. It may very well flop. But again, back to sort of like that attitude that you were portraying earlier of like, okay, it flopped. Now what? I forgot who I was talking to, but they were talking about entrepreneurs, when they put something out there, because you're an entrepreneur, own it. OT-trepreneur.
I think that's what we call it. Yeah. OT-preneur.
You're better at the speech stuff than me. Maybe I need to find a new career. But this idea that entrepreneurs, like anyone who's doing their own thing, and it doesn't, if you want it to become a full-time job, or if you just want to keep it a side gig, whatever, if something flops, a product or whatever fails, they don't take that as a personal reflection on them. I'm the worst. I'm never going to be successful. No, they take that as, okay, they take that as feedback. So like, clearly this flopped. Okay, what about this do I need to change so that doesn't happen again? And I think that's something really important too, because you can't have that attitude and also be a perfectionist at the same time.
That is so true. And just kind of tying it back into like the financial journey, like I think personal finance is a ton of trial and error. I mean, I don't know, the first like index fund I bought, I was like, I don't know about this. We'll see what happens.
What?
And then like, so just for, for listeners, index fund is something that I invest in my retirement account, which we probably don't have a ton of time to get into now, but I do believe in investing even while in student loan debt. I just have to say that. And so I am investing just, a little bit into an index fund. And so anyways, I got one and it wasn't performing super well. And I was like, I don't know what I just did, but it's a bunch of trial and error. And so then I learned and I educated myself and I read a ton of stuff about index funds. And then I bought another one and that was that. And so I just think that, personal finance too is just so much trial and error. Like even with my budgeting, I've had to do a ton of trial and error with budgeting to figure out which strategy really works for me. Like what can I actually stick to? And so, and that I just feel like that goes across the board when you do struggle with perfectionism. A lot of times it can keep you from starting. And so for me, that was a big thing with my finances is because I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted to have the perfect debt repayment plan. And I was like, until I have that plan, I'm just not going to start. And I had to really let go of that mindset and just be like, I have to just start and know I'm not going to get it perfect the first time or the second or the third, but I'm going to keep going. And eventually I'm going to figure out what works for me. And I think that's just the mindset that you have to adopt, especially when you do struggle with perfectionism, just, in any area of your life, whether it is personal or professional.
Yes. Yes. And at the end of the day, it's also about what's going to get you to your goal. So like people will ask me, well, how much should I budget for this? Or how much should I be investing? Or how much should I be putting on debt? What's your goal?
Yeah.
Right? Like, do you want to, I mean, if you want to do the traditional retirement at 65 versus if you're like, oh girl, I'd love to be work optional at 45. Okay. Well, your investing is going to look very, very different. If you're trying to retire 20 years earlier or become work optional or fire 20 years earlier, oh girl, I'm about some fire.
I'm not quite there yet, but
and hey,
learning about it.
Yeah. And you're right. Like everybody has their own journey. The biggest thing is you have to just do it on purpose. Recognize you're not going to be perfect the first time and that is okay. That is 100% okay. And continuing to educate yourself. Like it's not about, do you need to be better than X than, Blow Joe or whatever on Instagram. It's, I'm comparing today, Danny, to yesterday, Danny, and last year, Danny. That's who you really need to be making a comparison towards. And then also, are the actions that I'm doing, if you're sitting there trying to figure out a logo for some bits, for if say you want to start your private practice, you want to start an online business. Okay. Is me sitting here for 8 hours stressing out over if the logo should be like, if it should have the transparent background or not, is that taking me to my goal? In 5 years, I want to have supplemental income and, leave my full-time job and be working online or whatever. Cause I think that's like really the biggest thing, like what your goals are. So speaking of goals, Amirra, can you tell us, cause we've learned about your journey, and kind of like your mindset behind this. Can you tell us like what, you and your husband, like what are y'all's kind of financial goals and your career goals, and even your goals with Marvelous Miracles?
I love this question. Yes. So our goal is to be debt free in maximum 5 years, but we really want to do it in about 2 to 3 years. And we have, laid out a plan and we really think that we can stick to that, but you just never know what the future will hold. And if certain things will happen that will lead to more expenses when you're married. So we have pushed it out just a little bit. If you catch my drift.
I got you. Yeah.
So we've pushed it out just a little bit, just in case. But we're really hoping to stay within that 2 to 3 year time frame of being debt free. I would love that. He would love that. And I really think that we can do it if we just keep living like we're living, lifestyle creep and lifestyle inflation, it gets to you and you're like, I can have a new car now, or I can take that vacation, but just really being mindful of our expenses and things like that. So we're really hoping to be debt free in 2 to 3 years. And I think that we are going to be able to do that. So that's our big, debt free goal. And then we want to start really getting aggressive with our investing. And so that's why we haven't really talked too much about like when we want to be work optional. I think we would do like the work optional. I enjoy what I do in early intervention, and Mazi loves what he does as a CRNA. So I'm sure he will still want to keep it up, but having that option, right, of being able to work when you want to work versus having to work. So we'll probably just explore more of that after we are completely out of debt.
I'm so excited. That's so awesome.
It's pretty cool. Yes, yes. And so let's see what else. Oh, I do not see myself doing anything other than early intervention. I absolutely love it. I love the just the connections that we make with families. Right now, we are still virtual because of COVID, and I don't know when we're going to be back in person. But honestly, I've just adapted. I've rolled with it. I never in a million years thought that I would be a teletherapist, but here I am, and it's working out. My families are great. My kiddos are still making progress, so we're trucking along. But what I really, really hope to do is I have actually an early intervention kind of side business with two of my early intervention BFFs, Sarah Putt and Danielle DiLorenzo. We're called the Real OTs of EI. And so we're really just hoping to build that platform and that business as a means to just educate and empower other therapists across the board in early intervention to provide mentorship and networking. And we want to do a course. We have a podcast. So we're really excited. And so I'm really hoping.
How did I not know about this?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I love it. Yeah. So we're really hoping to just get that business built up. And Sarah had a baby, and so things kind of were on pause and they've slowed down. But we are actually meeting tomorrow to just get everything back up and running. So we're very, very excited about that. And so I'm really hoping to, even if I cut back a little bit on my early intervention work, to really be able to still support other therapists in early intervention, especially new graduates in early intervention. And so, if you're interested in anything EI related, definitely come hang out with us on Instagram, or we have a website and a blog, therealots.com. So yeah.
Like how did, all of this is in the show notes, by the
It
way.
is.
So if you're like, where the heck is that? Or like, if you're driving, be responsible. Okay. But, yeah. How did I not know this? Okay. So you're like, you want to have like, that's going to be a business. And then is that going to be separate from Marvelous Miracles?
It is separate. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marvelous Miracles. My three things I focus on: OT, faith, and finance. So I talk about OT, pre-OT, things for students, just life as a pediatric OT in general. The EI stuff is really focused over on the EI platform. And then I talk about my faith is big. So whether you have faith in God, you need to have faith in yourself. You need to have faith in humanity. Like, I am a big faith girl. I believe in taking leaps of faith. And so faith is just huge. That's just really huge to my core. And so I talk about things that, motivate me and inspire me over there. And then of course, the financial aspect of things, and just really working on financial empowerment, especially for OTs and, new graduates, and especially new grad OTs in massive student loan debt is kind of like my area, because that is where I relate to. And so just teaching those basic personal finance concepts, and just, sharing my journey as candidly as I can, and hoping that someone takes something out of it and, ends up in a better situation than I am.
I mean, you're doing great. Like,
well, thank you.
Like,
just debt wise. I don't want any more new grad OTs and lots of debt.
I know.
I just don't want that anymore.
I feel you. And it's like that. If you are in that debt, like, I'm here for you. And I hate that you're in that debt, but like, okay, like let's take some steps to start, making progress towards it. But if like, man, like if you can catch them on the front end.
Yes.
Like I've gotten a few messages from people who have just been like, I did not go to that I got into an in-state school and I went there because instead of going to the expensive school, because I saw one of your reels or whatever, you were being loud on Instagram and I actually listened to you like that. Because you're right. And I feel like the more our jobs can already be very stressful. That is true. We don't make doctor money. That does not mean we cannot increase our incomes, but it's just the reality of it. We aren't making as much as doctors. And it's it's very stressful, and it's a weight, just like you said, and that a weight on us to have that much debt in our lives. And that bleeds into every area. If they say like financial fights and stress is, one of the number one cause of divorce in this country, like that's something, that's a big deal. And, I don't think unless you take the time to really look at your situation, I don't think people realize how much strife and how much stress that not kind of not having your money under control and knowing where it's going provides for you. And then also, if you've never had that, you don't understand the piece of it either. Like, we just went through a hurricane and I had total peace about whatever was going to happen for that hurricane. And I mean, it was still stressful. Like, I mean, it was my house. Like, come on. Like, I just bought the dang thing. Come on now. Okay. But, we have a $5,000 deductible and our roof needs to be replaced. But like, we have an emergency fund.
Yep.
So, and honestly, like we have a couple months before we need to pay it. So like we're saving up so that we can potentially not really have to dip into the emergency fund. But like going into that hurricane with an emergency fund, like that would have been a very different level of stress and cortisol in my body if we didn't have our money right,
Exactly. And that's why I say like money is a tool. It grants us freedom, flexibility, peace of mind, stability. I mean, that's what it's about. It's never, we're not getting on here and saying we just want to make all the money in the world just because, but you can use that to create a life you love. And if a life you love involves peace when you know that a hurricane is coming, then by all means, have all the money in the world. So like I said, it's really, and like I know, it's just that mindset, the mindset that you have to overcome of feeling like, you're not being greedy or selfish. You still love people. You still love your families. You're not trying to get over on anyone. But at the end of the day, you only have one life and you want to have it to be as quality as possible. And I think that money it's a huge way to help have that type of life.
And you deserve that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can, that's okay to deserve that because you do.
Right.
Yes. Well, Amirra, this was like, I feel like I talk to people and I'm like, okay, I want to have you on for a part 2. I think I'm going to hit you up. I'm going to wait a little while because I know you're busy.
Hit me up in 2 to 3 years, Danny.
2 to 3 years?
When I'm debt free.
Oh, that'd be a good one. Okay. I don't know if I can wait that long.
But
I
also
really
sooner.
Enjoyed you. Yeah, I was
but
like,
also sooner.
Okay. Like I really enjoyed you. I don't want to wait that long. But before I let you go, I do want to be respectful of your time. But before I let you go, I have like 2 sort of wrap up questions for you. So the first question that I have for you is, for listeners out there who are in a similar situation as you, who they have a very, very significant amount of student loan debt and they're just kind of terrified of it. And they're just like, they feel kind of frozen and not sure where to go next. What advice would you give to them?
Take a deep breath and sit with those feelings, honestly, because if someone would have told me to just make a plan, know your numbers right away, I would have shut down. I think that it's okay to allow yourself to sit with those feelings, but take a deep breath and know that you can absolutely get out of it. The other thing I want to highlight is while I was saying I didn't want it to take me 10 to 20 years, if it takes you 10 to 20 years, that is okay. I think there's such a push and shove for people to aggressively pay off student loan debt. And sometimes it's not feasible, and I just don't want people to feel like I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to only live off beans and rice, or I can't live my life for 10 years. I think there are ways that you can do it much, much faster, but I think just allowing yourself, don't feel that pressure or stress or, worry or that anxiety that can sometimes be placed on you, especially when you're in that personal finance community, because that can be very overwhelming. And that's something I did to myself and it just was not healthy. And so just recognizing that you can get out of it and your speed, your pace might not be as fast as someone else, but that's okay. But if you want to get out of it faster, come hang out with Danny and I, because we always talk about it. So yes, about how to really, take control and get out of that debt. But just knowing that at the end of the day, you can absolutely do it. You just need a plan. You have to sit down, you have to face the numbers, face the music. It's going to be hard and scary and overwhelming. But if you have a plan for yourself and you set those financial goals and you tackle that financial mindset and that money mindset, you will be okay. And you can absolutely do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And I am doing it.
Yes. Hoorah, or whatever people say. I like that. Oh, okay. One more. I have one more and then I promise I'm gonna let you go. Okay.
You're good.
Just what piece of final money advice, I guess, would you kind of like to leave everyone with? Like, what's something like you wish you knew about money and, what you would want everyone else to take away from our conversation?
I think, there's so many. I'm trying to narrow it down.
I know I gave you a hard one. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to just narrow it down. I would say, I always say, know your numbers. That's always what I go back to when people say, I want to do better, but I don't know where to start. You have to know the situation that you're in. So you have to know your total debt. You have to know your interest rates on the debt. You have to know your whole balance. You have to know what money you're bringing in every month if you have multiple income sources. You have to know what money is going out, so tracking your expenses. So I think those are very practical things that I wish I would have known. And if you need a spreadsheet, if you want to use an app, whatever you want to do, just make sure that you have that plan, but that you know your numbers so you know what you're working with, because you can't really establish that plan unless you have that. So, to those people who are just like, I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know where to start, just start by knowing the situation that you're in, just write it all down. That's what I did first. I just wrote everything all down on a piece of paper and I looked at it and I was like, okay, from here, I can set my financial goals. I can make my plan. So that's always kind of like my very practical tips and tricks advice for anyone who is like, where do I start? How do I get better with my money?
I 100% agree, because you can't plan with what you don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, okay, if you need to, say you need to plan a wedding, how can you plan a wedding if you have absolutely no idea how many people are going to be there? If you don't know where the wedding's going to be, like, how you going to plan it? What you going to do?
Right.
Everybody's getting Chili's. Everybody's getting Chili's catering. I low-key thought about that for my wedding, but my parents probably would have hurt me, so we didn't.
Well, we Mazzy and I secretly eloped 3.5 weeks after we got engaged. So
I didn't know that. I wanted
our
to
siblings
elope.
didn't know. No one knew.
No one knew.
No one knew.
Okay, see, I wanted to elope, but I'm the only girl and I'm the baby girl.
Yeah.
So, like, if I had a sister, we definitely would have eloped. But because I'm like the only girl and the baby girl, I think my parents would have had like an absolute heart attack.
Oh yeah, there were some tears. There were some tears, but
you were like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
We did it. No regrets.
Hey, and that just like, and y'all, just like with everything, like everyone's journey is their own. There's definitely there's guiding principles and truths that are definitely there. But a lot of the detail stuff are things that you can work out based upon what your preference is. I think this is a total tangent, but I just gotta say it because I'm inspired by this. So like our marriages, okay, we got married in two very different ways, right? But like that doesn't matter. The fact is, like, you were married, like that's sort of like our principle based truths, like that you married someone that you love, that loves you, that you've married someone that y'all are in alignment with your goals and what you want out of life, right? Like those are the things that have to be there in order for this whole thingy to work, right? How you get married, where you get married, like all that stuff, it's important, but that's extra. That's not really going to affect the true success of your marriage. And I think finances is the same way. Like there's these few truths that you have to be there with. Like you have to know your numbers. You have to have a plan. You have to live on less than you make. Like that it just is what it is. But the rest of that stuff is kind of that detail work that you can kind of decide how you want your, how you want your wedding, how you want your life to look.
I love that analogy.
I don't know where that came from. It just kind of like came to me.
That's good.
You bring out the best analogies in me, Amirra. That's what it is. Well, yes. Thank you so much for coming on. This is such a pleasure. And I'm definitely going to call you before 2 or 3 years from now.
Sounds
to have
good.
Another part
I'll
2.
be ready.
Because I think we need to have a good conversation about investing. I would really, really love to have a conversation.
I would love that. Yeah.
Yes. If you want to hear about investing from me and Amirra, send me a DM on Instagram or message Amirra on Instagram and be like, hey, you and Danny talk about investing. P.S. Go.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, girl. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And again, I just appreciate you and your journey and sharing your story so much. And I love just having somebody else in the therapy space talking about money and personal finance because it's so, so important.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Danny. It was a pleasure.
Yes. Yes. All right. Bye, girl.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to hear more no fluff, getting the dang thing done stuff for myself and other real life SLPs, be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or pledge a small amount on patreon.com/speechgoods. If you found this content valuable, please share it with others so we can get this message out there. And if you haven't already, join us on Instagram. Handle is @SpeechGoods. See you there.